All right, so are you ready to go deep on this one? We've got Dennis Quaid on Joe Rogan, and wow, this interview, I mean, you sent it over and yeah, I get it.
It's a lot.
That's a lot. There's a lot going on here. It's not just a celebrity interview, is it? This is like
Oh, no.
Dennis Quaid unfiltered, right?
Yeah, Dennis Quaid, the man behind the movie star facade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get right into it. First of all, Dennis Quaid, gospel singer.
Yeah, who knew?
That's what I'm saying. Like, this is not something I was expecting to come across in my research.
Last year, he released a whole album.
Yeah.
And, it's not just him dabbling. Like, he's got a history. He was raised Baptist.
Oh, okay.
So, this is kind of in his blood a little bit.
Yeah, it's like coming full circle, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. And, I think it's interesting that he's choosing this genre. Like, at this point in his career, it suggests a desire for something more.
More in Hollywood, maybe.
Yeah, something real authentic.
Well, he even shared a story about one of the songs he wrote, On My Way to Heaven.
Oh, yeah.
And he wrote it for his mother while she was in rehab.
Wow.
I mean, it's really powerful. And then to hear that Tanya Tucker and Chris Stapleton wanted to record it.
Yeah.
It's like, this is serious stuff.
It speaks to the power of his music,
So,
To have artists like that
yeah, right.
recognize the depth and sincerity, it says something.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's back up a little bit, though. So before Hollywood, Dennis Quaid wanted to be a veterinarian.
Yeah, I read that. That's surprising.
Hard to imagine, right?
It is.
But then, he tells his story about a horse.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just say it was a very, very graphic story involving a not fully castrated horse. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, my gosh.
And, I think that kind of sealed the deal for Hollywood.
It would. Yeah, you can see why he changed his mind.
Yeah. But it's fascinating because he arrives in Hollywood in the 1970s.
Yeah.
And he describes it as this time of real creative freedom.
Wild, Wild West kind of.
Yeah, the anti-hero's on the rise. Everything feels possible.
Right.
And then you contrast that with how he views Hollywood today.
It's a different world, isn't it?
It is. He talks about this dominance of one ideology, this fear of expressing different opinions.
Yeah, like you can't say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
You'll be canceled.
Yeah, and it's interesting because he was part of this rebellious movement, and now he kind of feels like an outsider.
An outsider, yeah, in the industry that he helped shape, in a way.
Right, right. And this kind of brings us to his political views.
Yeah.
He identifies as an independent, but he's been pretty vocal about his support for Trump.
Which is, not exactly popular in Hollywood.
No, not at all. He even talks about almost being, canceled because of it.
Right.
And he sees this connection between the current political climate and the influence of big tech companies.
Oh, interesting.
And particularly this shift in big donors from Republicans to Democrats.
Yeah.
He points to Silicon Valley, these tech oligarchs.
Uh-huh. So the power has shifted.
Yeah, and it's not just about money, right? It's about information.
Yeah.
The control of information.
Yeah, that's a big one these days, isn't it?
He uses Google as an example.
Okay.
And he expresses concern about the potential for bias in search results.
Right.
So you're not necessarily getting a neutral view of things.
You're getting a curated view.
Yeah, that's worrying. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, who's curating that and what's their agenda?
Exactly. Now, speaking of agendas, we have to talk about his upcoming movie about Ronald Reagan.
Okay. Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, this is where things get interesting.
Okay. So
Quaid and the filmmakers, they faced a lot of pushback because the movie portrays Reagan in a positive light.
Which, again, not super popular in Hollywood.
No, not these days.
Mm-hmm.
And get this, Facebook even banned their advertising for a while. They claimed it was an attempt to influence an election.
Wow. Talk about power, right?
Yeah, it's a bit alarming, isn't it? Like, who gets to decide what we see and hear?
It makes you think, yeah.
But what's interesting is that Quaid draws parallels between the political climate during Reagan's time and today.
Okay, how so?
He talks about the economic anxieties, the distrust in government, this feeling that the average person's voice isn't being heard, that there's this disconnect.
Right, so like history repeating itself in a way.
Yeah, and he clearly admires Reagan. He spent time at the Reagan Ranch, and it seems like that really deepened his understanding of the man.
So it's not just a surface level admiration.
No, it's deeper than that.
Okay, and let's not forget, this is a guy who's been around, he's seen a lot, he's got a perspective that spans decades.
Exactly. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit.
All right.
Let's talk about COVID-19, because Quaid's pretty open about his experience.
Okay.
He took the vaccine actually twice, because of filming requirements.
Oh, wow.
But he also expresses some concerns about potential long-term effects.
Right, because we don't really know yet, do we?
Exactly. It's all so new. And he brings up this phenomenon of excess deaths, which is basically the increase in deaths beyond what would be expected based on historical trends.
Okay, I've heard that term, but can you explain that a little more? I'm not sure everyone's familiar with that.
Yeah, so essentially it's a way of measuring if the overall death rate is higher than we'd normally anticipate.
I see.
And he seems particularly concerned about a possible connection between these excess deaths and the vaccine.
Okay.
He cites the work of Peter McCullough, who's a cardiologist who's been pretty critical of the vaccine rollout.
Right, he's been outspoken about that.
Yeah, and what's frustrating for Quaid, and he's very vocal about this, is the lack of open dialogue around the vaccine.
Like, you can't question
You
it.
can't question it, yeah.
Right.
And if you do, you're immediately labeled as, anti-science or whatever.
So he sees that as part of this larger pattern
That's right.
of suppressing dissent.
Yes, and it's not just about COVID, right? It's about this broader trend of silencing dissenting voices, whether it's in politics, Hollywood, or even science.
Right, it's like certain topics are just off limits.
Exactly. And Quaid doesn't shy away from those topics, which is what makes this interview so fascinating.
Mhm.
He's willing to go there.
He is.
And one of those topics is the transgender movement, which is obviously incredibly sensitive and complex.
That is, yeah.
And he's very clear about his own personal history with LGBTQ plus individuals.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about his belief in tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
But he also expresses some concerns about what he sees as the current state of the movement.
Okay, so it's nuanced.
Very nuanced, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
On the one hand, he talks about long-standing relationships within the LGBTQ plus community.
Right.
He even tells a story about playing golf with Caitlyn Jenner before her transition.
Wow, okay.
And you can tell there's a genuine respect there.
Right.
But then on the other hand, he voices concerns about, the implications for women's sports, the potential harm to children undergoing medical transitions.
It's a tough one. There are so many perspectives and strong feelings on all sides.
Yeah, and I think what's important here is that Quaid is trying to navigate this really complex issue while staying true to his own beliefs.
And being honest about those beliefs.
And being honest.
Yeah.
Even though they might be controversial.
Even if they're controversial, and that takes courage.
It does, especially in today's climate.
Exactly. So we've covered a lot of ground already.
Yeah.
And we're just getting started.
I know, this is a lot to unpack.
It is. And I think what's fascinating is how all of these threads, from Hollywood to politics to COVID to the transgender movement, it all kind of weaves together into this bigger tapestry of what's happening in our society right now.
And Quaid's right in the middle of it.
He is. He's right there in the thick of it.
Yeah, he's not shying away.
No, he's not shying away at all. And I think that's what makes him such a compelling figure to listen to.
He's got a lot to say, and he's saying it.
He is. And whether you agree with him or not, it's definitely worth listening to. Absolutely.
And we're going to keep digging into all of this after the break.
Can't wait. Welcome back. It's interesting. We just touched on the pandemic and the transgender movement, but then there's this whole other thing with the Trump assassination attempt.
Where?
Quaid is he's not buying the official story, and it really makes you think, is there more to this?
Well, yeah, there's this feeling, this unease that he kind of projects in that part of the interview.
It's not just skepticism.
No.
It's deeper than that. It's like a distrust. A fundamental distrust of the institutions.
And the narratives that they're putting out.
Exactly.
He points to the lack of media coverage, the weird details about the shooter, this lack of transparency from authorities. It's like, come on, something's not right here.
Right. It's like, who are we supposed to believe?
Yeah. And it goes back to his point about information control, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, who's deciding what stories get told, what perspectives we're even allowed to hear?
Yeah, it's scary because if we're not getting the full picture, how can we even begin to form our own opinions?
Exactly. And it's not about believing every conspiracy theory out there.
No, not at all.
It's about being critical thinkers, right?
Exactly. Questioning, looking for inconsistencies.
Demanding more transparency.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, wait a minute. This doesn't add up.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's what Quaid is trying to do here.
Yeah, he's trying to wake people up.
To the fact that we can't just blindly accept everything we're told.
And speaking of not blindly accepting things, Quaid's also pretty skeptical about the Biden administration.
Oh, yeah. He does not hold back there.
No, especially when it comes to Kamala Harris.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to have much faith in her capabilities, does he?
No, he really doesn't. And he thinks she lacks authenticity, consistency, she's playing a role.
Yeah, it's interesting. He even brought up that Babylon Bee caption, the one about Kamala Harris flipping positions, which, even if it's satire, it does kind of capture that perception.
Totally. And he specifically mentions her stance on taxing tips, like she was against it, then she was for it. And for him, that kind of solidified it. Like, this is just a political game to her.
It speaks to this larger distrust of the administration, right?
Yeah. And it's not just about Harris. It's about Biden, too. This feeling that he's absent, that he's not really in control.
And then you have the Hunter Biden laptop story, which just adds another layer to all of this.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole other can of worms.
It is. And it makes you wonder what else is out there? What other information is being suppressed or downplayed?
It's like this whole information war is happening.
Right. And we're caught in the middle of it.
Trying to figure out what's real, what's not.
It's unsettling.
It is. Because it makes you question everything you see. Yeah. Everything you read.
Yeah, it's like, who can you trust?
Right, and that's why critical thinking is so crucial, right?
Absolutely. We have to be able to filter the noise, identify the bias.
Evidence, not just jump to conclusions.
Exactly. And Quaid's skepticism about the Trump assassination attempt, the Hunter Biden laptop story, it all kind of leads to this bigger conversation about conspiracy theories, right?
Yeah, and he doesn't shy away from that at all. He even brings up historical examples like JFK, the Gulf of Tonkin incident.
And those are events that have fueled so many conspiracy theories over the years.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that his willingness to even discuss these things suggests a distrust of government institutions, especially agencies like the CIA.
It's like, what if they were involved? What if there's more to the story than we've been told?
And he suggests that if the CIA's role in these events were ever proven, it would shatter our understanding of history.
It would be huge, yeah.
It's a chilling thought, like, what else don't we know?
It makes you realize that power can be abused, that information can be manipulated.
And that the truth is often hidden.
Yeah, and it's not just about the past, right? Quaid's also worried about the future, particularly with the rapid advancement of technology.
Yeah, he talks a lot about AI, artificial intelligence, and he sees it as a potential existential threat.
Like, it could get out of control, right?
Exactly, and he specifically mentions AI weaponry, that's some scary stuff.
It is. It's like science fiction, but it's becoming reality.
Yeah, and we need to be having these conversations now before it's too late.
Absolutely. We need to be thinking about the ethical implications, the potential dangers.
It's not just about killer robots, though.
No, it's about the more subtle ways technology is shaping us, our thoughts, our behavior.
Right. He talks about social media addiction, the loss of privacy, the algorithms that are manipulating our choices.
It's like we're becoming slaves to technology without even realizing it.
Yeah, it's insidious.
Yeah.
Because these changes are happening so gradually.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in the convenience, the entertainment.
And then suddenly you realize, wait a minute, I'm giving up my freedom, my autonomy.
Yeah, that's a slippery slope.
So what can we do about it? Are we just powerless?
I don't think so, but it takes awareness, activism, a willingness to push back against these forces that are trying to control us.
Quaid emphasizes open dialogue, access to information, a commitment to truth.
Those are the pillars of a free society.
And they're under threat in this digital age.
It's up to us to defend them, to demand transparency from our leaders, to support independent journalism, to educate ourselves.
That's a lot, I know.
It is, but the stakes are high. We're talking about the future of our society, our freedom.
And it starts with each of us, right?
Exactly. Taking responsibility, taking action, even if it's small.
Because even a small act of resistance can make a difference.
It can inspire others. It can create a ripple effect.
And hopefully those ripples will turn into waves.
Waves of change.
Waves of awareness.
Waves of people saying, enough is enough.
We're taking back control.
And we're building a better future.
Man, we've been through a lot with this Dennis Quaid interview, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Gospel music, Hollywood, politics, COVID. I mean, this guy's got opinions on everything.
He does. And, what really strikes me is how, he's not afraid to challenge the mainstream narrative. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He's definitely not afraid to ruffle some feathers.
He's not. He's asking the tough questions, and he's encouraging us to do the same, which I think is really important.
It is. Yeah, he doesn't just want us to sit back and passively accept everything we're told. He wants us to think for ourselves.
Exactly. He's like, wake up, people.
Right. But at the same time, he does paint a pretty bleak picture, like the power of big tech, the erosion of trust. It's kind of depressing.
It is, but I don't think he wants to leave us feeling hopeless, right? I think there's a message of empowerment in there too.
Yeah, there is. amidst all the doom and gloom, there's this glimmer of hope.
Exactly. Like, okay, things are messed up, but we can do something about it.
So what can we do? Like, what are some practical steps we can take to counter these alarming trends?
Well, I think for Quaid, it starts with individual responsibility. Like he's not waiting for someone else to fix things. He's taking action in his own life.
Yeah, he's walking the walk.
He is, and that's inspiring. It shows that even one person can make a difference.
Right. It's not about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about just doing something.
Exactly. And one of the things he really emphasizes is open dialogue, access to information.
Yeah, like we need to be able to have conversations, even if they're difficult.
Right. Even if we disagree, we need to be able to listen to each other, respect each other's perspectives.
It's so hard these days, though, isn't it? Like everyone's so polarized, so quick to judge, so quick to cancel.
It is, but we have to try, right? Like if we just retreat into our echo chambers, we're never going to be able to bridge the divide.
And we need to support independent media, challenge censorship, because if we only get one side of the story, that's dangerous.
It is. It's like living in a bubble.
Exactly. And Quaid also talks about being more discerning consumers of information. Like don't just believe everything you read on social media or see on the news.
Yeah, we need to be critical thinkers, question the sources, look for evidence.
Become like information detectives.
I like that. Information detectives. Yeah, because there's so much misinformation out there, so much propaganda.
It's overwhelming.
It is, but we have to be vigilant. We have to be careful about what we consume.
And what about technology? I mean, he's pretty critical of how it's shaping our lives, right?
He is, but I think he also recognizes that it's not going away, so we have to find ways to use it wisely, to protect ourselves.
So maybe it's about setting boundaries, limiting our screen time, being more intentional about how we use social media.
Right, and supporting creators who are aligned with our values, who are promoting truth and freedom.
Because ultimately it's about reclaiming our agency, right?
Yeah.
Like we have the power to choose how we engage with technology.
We do. We don't have to be passive consumers.
And Quaid also talks about the importance of community, like finding people who share our values, who can support us in this fight for a better future.
Yeah, there's strength in numbers, right?
Absolutely. And it's not about being part of some exclusive club. It's about finding people who are also searching for truth, who are also trying to make sense of this crazy world.
And who are willing to stand up for what they believe in.
Even when it's hard.
Especially when it's hard.
Yeah, because that's when it matters most.
That's when we need each other the most.
So it's been a wild ride with Dennis Quaid.
It has. I mean, we've talked about everything from gospel music to AI weaponry.
And conspiracy theories, let's not forget those.
Yeah, those were interesting.
But you know what? Even though some of these topics are heavy, I'm actually feeling kind of hopeful.
Me too, because ultimately, Quaid's message is one of empowerment,
It is. He's reminding us that we have a choice.
We do. We can choose to be passive, or we can choose to be active, to engage, to fight for what we believe in.
To shape the future.
Exactly. So let's choose wisely.
Let's stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.
And as always, stay curious out there.